history of slavery, and we still have slavery. It's no longer chattel slavery. What we have now is wage slavery or welfare slavery, where people are not independent. They don't produce enough. Many people can't live full lives because their labor is not enough to provide them much of an income. And then you have an economy that's probably operating at about 20% of its full potential. We have technologies on the drawing boards. We have new systems of energy, infinite energy, that can go far beyond the fossil fuels, where we could produce enough. When we're talking about slavery, Buckminster Fuller, who's another one of the teachers that I have, Louis Kelso, taught me economic justice. I never understood it before. Even after law school, I didn't understand what economic justice was and social justice. They don't teach justice in the law schools, and they don't teach it in economics. They teach you a system based on scarcity instead of shared abundance. You see, and if you plan for scarcity, that's what you get. If you plan for abundance, you can move beyond it. Now, Bucky Fuller, I mentioned his name, and we're doing some work with Representative Wyvetter Young, and to build an advanced city of the 21st century, a model for the world. And Fuller used, he's the inventor of the geodesic dome. He was one of the great thinkers in terms of the whole field of technology and the history of technology. And Fuller used a term. He said we have to move to create energy slaves. In other words, the forms of energy that can move the technology, not human beings, and not necessarily the fossil fuels. We can get from the sun, and we can get from the wind, and we can get in other soil. We now have advanced technologies that were designed for the moon, so that the moon would not need fossil. It doesn't have fossil fuels there. So through a combination of solar and technologies, fuel cell technologies, and also I think you're in the field. You would know about steam reforming, gasification systems, where you break down, you get the heat up to about 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit. You can break down organic matter into synfuel, and you feed that into fuel cells, and you get, what do you get out of that? Electricity?
Yes, correct.
You get water and heat, resources. And so Bucky, in his book, it was called Utopia or Oblivion. I don't like the word utopia because that means there's no such place. But the idea is you could begin to move from what Bucky called weaponry, where we were using most of the energy slaves in the system. We're wasting them in wars and forms of waste, weaponry. He said you had to move from weaponry to livingry, so that we can develop the technologies so that everyone on Earth could be successful. It isn't a question of whether we can physically do it. We can do it. The system is holding it back. So that's where you began the conversation to say that we have alternate system designs that would change the monetary system, the money system, the credit system. And these are parts of what we call the just third way. But the idea is we got to move from narrow ownership, where a small elite owns and controls the means of production, owns and controls money systems, so that money power can go to the people, credit power can go to the people, the right kind. And if we look at the present system, for example, you're going to find that the wrong kind of credit go to most people. It's non-productive credit, consumer credit, and that's why people get this. They get high interest in loans because they don't make enough to be able to pay for what they want to consume. And so they go out, they're encouraged to spend before they've earned, and then they have to go into bankruptcy. And so they remain permanent debtors. High interest, usury, it just kills people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the wrong kind of credit. And you'll find that in all the great religions, they say you got to move away from usury. Money is just a form of credit. It's a form of promises that are made. And we can move to interest-free credit. How? Well, a modern country has a central bank, and the central banks control the irrigation of credit and money through the system. And so one of the things in our game plan that we call capital homesteading, and as a matter of fact, we have a book on this that's a total blueprint of changing the Federal Reserve System and the tax system and labor policy and welfare policy and inheritance laws in such a way that every person, we level the playing field. You don't have to pull down the rich because they can't take their wealth with them. But you can change your inheritance laws, for example, so that present accumulations are spread out from one generation to the next rather than remaining monopolized or concentrated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But that's not the big game, because you can't feed everyone, and to raise the level of affluence, you need to grow. Well, how do you grow? Well, are we going to do it by just having more human beings? That's not going to do it. What it's going to be is adding the technology so that the human beings, so that it can begin to own and control and be masters of the energy slaves that will produce the wealth. Why ownership? Because ownership says that if you own it, the fruits of what you own belong to you. So you don't have to go to the boss if you're an owner. The dividends, the profits of a company will come to you. You don't have to go to a welfare bureaucrat for income if you own enough capital. And so we're saying if you look at the present system as a tree, you're an annual ring now of new plant and equipment, and these are more and more sophisticated every year, new rentable space of all kinds, and new physical infrastructures. If we look at just the U.S. economy, we add about $2 trillion a year in new capital formation, it's called. New capital, new assets, new productive assets. So we're saying if you divide the U.S. population into that, it's roughly $7,000 per man, woman, and child. So we're saying, okay, is there an alternative way to finance that annual growth so that year after year, and maybe even increase the size of the annual ring if we grow faster than we are now? It's in ways in which the new technologies and the companies that use own more broadly. You can look at this as the United States, or you can look at this in the global village. The ideas will apply whether you're talking at a community level or at a national or regional level or the global level. The idea is that you want to move to levels of abundance for everyone so that people can escape from spending all their life trying to get by, just earn a living, just to get a paycheck. We want to create a system where everyone can not only get a paycheck to the extent that they work, but they get a dividend check. And if we understand that dividends are the fruits of capital, then dividends aren't bad. They're only bad if they're monopolized.
Mm-hmm.
If only a few profits only go to them, and of course those who are not sharing in those profits are going to resent it. If all they are working for those who own, and as I say, who owns is all a matter of law. It's all a matter of the system. If you design the system right, anybody can be an owner. Now, I'm not talking utopia. I'm talking about using techniques that work. We were able to get laws through the Congress starting in 1974 that in which workers became owners without putting up any money. They had no money. How did they do it? Not by consumer credit, but by capital credit.
Okay, now Dr. Kurland,
Right.
I'd like to reiterate some points and highlight some of the fine points that you just mentioned. And what you were saying, technology, and when you're looking at how you look at, we are now becoming human consumer slaves. In so many terms, I'm just putting it, add consumer.
It's heroin. It's called consumer credit. It's
right.
a form of heroin. It gets you hooked.
Right, and then when you think about here, you're looking at a process where you're talking about people working for companies and corporations, but did not benefit from the profits and the dividends that come from those companies and corporations.
That's right.
And so the process that exists today is a process that is only exclusive only for the elitists.
That's right. It's a wage system for the ordinary human being. The top 10%.
Mm-hmm. So now
own 90% of directly held corporate equities.
So now for those impoverished communities like East St. Louis,
yeah,
and those and really the economic design and system that you're talking about can not only just be implemented in every urban and rural city and across this country, but we're also looking at, and you can see in other countries, and like in Africa and other countries around the world, that these type of systems could be implemented, but yet in the approach of it, we have to look at a whole new architectural design. That includes the architectural design with the solar energy movement and the technologies that goes into place. And then what happens is, I like this term that you came up with from a previous program that we had a discussion on. And how does that work when you talk about leisure time?
If you think about human beings have to work. They shrivel. They become less human if they can't perform some kind of work. But economic work is one form of work, but it isn't work. Leisure work was developed. Aristotle used the term leisure work to mean the work of civilization, the work you do when you don't have to worry about a paycheck. It's art, it's music, it's philosophy, it's teaching, it's justice, as a matter of fact. I mean, if you look at the Greek city-state, the citizens of Greece were basically supported by slaves, and they were and that freed them to do the work of civilization. You see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we have to say, but this is not just. You can't enslave people. You're depriving people of property in their own bodies by taking the fruits of their body. You see, that's one thing about property. One of the rights of property is not that which you own, which is your body and your human effort, but also to get the fruits of it. If somebody takes the fruits of what you produce, you're a slave. That's what slavery is. You see? So, and so what happened in the Greek system, if you go back into civilization, there was slavery in many societies, and that freed some of the people to do the easy work or the work of creating civilizations, art and philosophy and all of that, religion,
science,
mm-hmm. Exactly,
mm-hmm.
all the things. And you see, when we create enough energy slaves, eventually it's not going to happen overnight. We have to build, we have to create, we have to work, and we have to create a system of financing it so that when you create this, the people are not victimized by the owners of the machines, because the people will be the owners.
You see,
So
and
this is not socialism, because under socialism,
Mhm.
they talk about everybody being an